June 25, 2009. A panicked 911 call cuts through the dispatch center in Los Angeles, originating from a rented Holmby Hills mansion. Within hours, Michael Jackson was pronounced dead at UCLA Medical Center. Look at the headlines from that afternoon. The immediate assumption broadcast globally was that Jackson had succumbed to a sudden, tragic cardiac arrest. While the public grieved a medical emergency, investigators stepping inside that residential bedroom realized they were standing in a heavily altered crime scene. The official coroner's report ultimately redefined the tragedy with a single word: homicide, via acute Propofol intoxication. To understand how the greatest entertainer in history died, we have to look past the initial reports and examine the three physical pillars of the forensic file. Leading up to a 50-show comeback tour in London, Jackson was suffering from severe, unyielding insomnia. To force sleep, his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, administered multiple sedatives, including Valium, Midazolam, and Lorazepam, directly into Jackson's bloodstream. When these drugs failed, Murray introduced a lethal tipping point. He injected a 25-milligram dose of Propofol, an anesthetic strictly reserved for hospital operating rooms. Looking at this diagram of the respiratory system, we can see how this chemical combination behaves. The Propofol suppresses the central nervous system's automatic drive to breathe. Because this drug can stop autonomous breathing entirely, it requires continuous monitoring and mechanical life support machinery. Administering this specific hospital-grade anesthetic inside an unmonitored residential bedroom was a fatal breach of medical protocol. The toxicology identifies the cause of death, but the forensic timeline reveals why resuscitation was impossible. This timeline tracks the morning of June 25th. There is an 82-minute gap between the moment Dr. Murray found Jackson unresponsive and the moment security finally called 911. Evidence shows that instead of performing immediate CPR, Murray spent this window clearing the bedroom of medical supplies. Investigators determined he was collecting empty Propofol vials, IV tubing, and prescription bottles to hide them in canvas bags. By the time paramedics were finally alerted, the window to save Jackson's life had closed during the cleanup of the room. For decades, tabloid rumors suggested Jackson's body was destroyed by extreme cosmetic surgeries and starvation. The official Los Angeles County Coroner's report serves as the empirical record that dismantled those narratives. At 50 years old, Jackson was physically fit, with a healthy heart and a weight of 136 pounds, perfectly consistent with his professional dancer profile. The report also confirmed Jackson suffered from severe vitiligo, a disease that destroys skin pigmentation, validating his lifelong claims. However, the medical examiner found chronic scarring in his lungs and hundreds of intravenous puncture marks on his arms and legs. While Jackson was healthy for his age, his scarred lungs made him particularly vulnerable to the respiratory suppressing effects of the medications Murray chose to use. In November 2011, the evidence led to the criminal trial of Dr. Conrad Murray. The prosecution linked the unmonitored Propofol, the 82-minute delay, and the autopsy findings to establish a case of gross negligence. The jury returned a unanimous verdict of guilty of involuntary manslaughter, and Murray received the maximum 4-year prison sentence. The forensic data showed that Jackson's death was the predictable outcome of specific, unmonitored medical interventions. Ultimately, Michael Jackson's death remains a tragic consequence of basic medical safeguards being recklessly abandoned behind closed doors.